Hey everybody, Lord PeteyTV here. We're going to be talking about our progression with our Mythic Plus dungeons for World of Warcraft. So we're starting a new series. We're going to kind of go through that whole entire process. So we're going to talk about how we go through each dungeon and how we end up dealing with them. So thank you for checking us out. I hope you enjoy. This is our 12 Rookery. Thank you. So I want to talk about our first pull here. Now, when we end up pulling here, we end up pulling that right pack. We end up pulling the center pack here. Our tank gets everything together. We end up lusting, and we end up DPSing this pack down. As you can see, a lot of the range are standing on top of the canopy to stop themselves from getting damaged. Me, I always jump down. I've just always felt more comfortable just in case something should happen. I can move a little easier. So we end up burning this pack, and then we're going to move to the next one. Now, this pack takes a little bit to come down, but we end up getting. Now, in this next pack here, we're going to show you, they're going to end up pulling these two packs together, and we don't have luster or anything, so we're just going to, burn cooldowns like we have been, AoEing them down, making sure we're continuing to interrupt as much as we possibly can to make sure that not an excess amount of damage goes out. When those pulses go out, more than likely, some of us use our defensives. I end up, this is the first time for me kind of going through the process, so I kind of might have slipped up a little bit, but I end up using the defensives going forward. And we're just going to go down and we're going to continue to kill all the mobs. Once all those mobs die, and the Void Rider is the only thing, we're going to continue to pull the next pack. We're going to pull that pack, and we're pretty much going to repeat the process. We're going to make sure we're interrupting, and then we're going to pull that last pack in the back. We're going to end up AoEing that down, as you can see. Now our DPS is going pretty good. We're running with a Fury Warrior, and then myself as a Marksman Hunter, and then we're going with the Elemental Shaman. We have a Mistweaver Monk tanking and a Prot Paladin tanking and a Mistweaver Monk healing. So once that whole entire pack is done, we're going to end up killing that mob as we're going to run to the other side. We're going to try to make sure we're continuing to interrupt as much as we can. I try to make sure I dispel a couple of these with Trank Shot, and we end up using Purge and things like that to make sure we're getting those things down. So we're just killing the 3 right now because it's the easiest and the best way to go, and it's not going to cause that much of an issue when we're going through the process. So we end up killing those. We end up pulling this 3 pack here, and we end up pulling the other 2 packs with it. So here we have a total of 3 packs, and we're just going to AoE as much as we possibly can, because we're going to have a lot of damage that's going to be coming soon. Now, the AoE in our group is very, very strong, thankfully, and you can kind of see that. So we end up making sure we're using our defensives. We're making sure we're, doing our rotations. I ended up screwing my rotation a bunch of times this dungeon, but overall, it kind of worked out pretty good for me on sometimes. So the Void Riders are probably the hardest parts of these whole entire packs because of the AoE damage. So if you're going to end up using your defensives, you can get through it. The tank usually has no issues getting through any of that stuff, so it's not too bad. So we're going to end up going through. We're going to use aim shot. I'm going to use aim shot, steady shots on move, and we're just going to continue to DPS. So we end up having a little bit of an issue here as our Elemental Shaman went offline, but we still wanted to try to make timers, so we still pulled without him. So we're just going through the regular DPS rotations for this boss. We kind of make sure that we're standing in, this solid area for the AoEs. We try to make sure that we are not on the grading. The grading is where the beam always starts. So we just try to continue to make sure we hit and move. And I try to make sure that I'm getting out of all the stuff as things are happening. Our Ellie Shaman's back, so we're going to end up being able to DPS at full strength. And we're just going to continue to do our rotations, and we're just going to continue to use defensives on big bursts. And, unlike the Crackling Lightning, though we use defensives there. When when this AoE happens, I try to stay kind of farther on the outside because I can move a little faster. And I just kind of try to make sure I continue to steady shot as I'm going. Now, the biggest issue for me throughout this whole entire time was the fact that I don't actually play with these guys on a regular basis. But at the same time, it kind of worked out. I tried to use my cooldowns every second I possibly could to make sure I'm maximizing my DPS for that. Now, the biggest issue I kind of felt with this boss itself is that it's very, very hard to deal with when you are, DPSing and moving the way I am right now for range. But when you have a melee like an enhancement shaman or a fury warrior, it's not going to be that bad. Now, the tank itself, he is just rolling defensives on, on the big hit damages that are coming out to him. And we're kind of just going through. We end up killing them actually super easy and super quick. We end up jumping down. We end up getting, our feathers. I try to make sure that I get a bird, so that way I can at least have the increased damage buff from the birds themselves. I'm a dwarf. I can't jump over that stuff. And we're going to continue to go around the corner. We're going to skip these 2 packs, and we're going to kind of go into these bigger packs here. This is, I'm pretty sure it's either this pack or the next one. It's not my finer moment, but I end up dying and have to run back. But we end up DPSing here as hard as we possibly can, and we end up kind of just trying to make sure we're staying away from people. When I'm using big cooldowns now, or these big packs are happening, I'm trying to make sure I always use a defensive, because defensives at this point of the game are almost like always on cooldown. So I always am trying to get another survival of the fittest or another type of proc going on. So here is one of those times I'm trying to get away from everybody, and I just have lots of problems. But we end up DPSing these guys here, and we end up just going for it. Right now, I technically do have True Shot Aura going, and I'm trying to keep going. I'm trying to make sure that I use my my rapid fire, and then using my burst AoE explosion for my 4-piece, because that does a lot of damage to everybody else, and it exponentially gets stronger. So here is another big pack. We're going to end up pulling that. I'm going to DPS the pack as much as I can. And a lot of people, what they end up doing is they actually pull this group and the next one like we do now. So we wait until it's about 50% and then we pull it. And then we try to separate a little bit as this is happening. And we try to make sure that we're DPSing everything that's going on there. And at this time, all we have left is the diffusers, which is actually pretty easy to deal with. So we just got to keep an eye on those and kind of trying to make sure everything works out. So now we got a double pull in, which is a lot of damage. Thankfully, our healer is actually pumping right now. He's doing like 2.4 mil HPS. So we're ending up doing that. We're kind of going through and we're DPSing that stuff down. And now we're going to go into the next boss. We end up pulling these 2 groups of mobs in. My personal opinion is pulling these guys onto the boss, because it's a lot more helpful to me to be able to multi-shot and to do more damage. But, they prefer to do it separate. And then from here, we try to make sure that we're always allowing the corruption to skip. When I get it, I try to make sure I use a defensive. That way it gives, the tank a little bit and the healer a little bit of breathing room. So we're going to end up going through that. And we're trying to stick somewhat close together so that when it does jump, it doesn't jump too far. That way the warrior doesn't have to, deal with, lots of movement. The big problem is that you don't want to double skip, I should say, or double jump the chaotic corruption to the same person. That will cause a big problem. Thankfully, there's no real big tank busters here from what I can remember when I end up tanking them. You just got to make sure that you're using defensives, accordingly, and just making sure you're kind of just keeping an eye on how's it going. This guy has, in my opinion, a lot more health than you would think he does, and that's why he takes a lot more time to kill, and you have a lot more margin of error, because start losing space in the room, people start getting kind of a little scattery, but you continue to just do the same thing. Make sure you're dealing with the ads together. Make sure you're dealing with being together. Make sure you're dealing with that chaotic corruption. You deal with the gravity when the pull's in, and you're going to end up fine. So overall, these are a little more difficult, this boss, and he's going to die. and we're going to end up going to the next pull. The next pull is just the standard 3 pull. There's nothing really big you can do about this. We just try to make sure we're continuing to interrupt the ascendant, ascendant, whatever you want to call it, while the damage is going out. Making sure I'm using my defensives, and I'm making sure I'm trying to heal as much as I can while we're going through this process. So, they do end up putting out a lot more damage than you would think. So you have to be really, focused on what's happening, where the boss is going, and what's ending up happening. So after that, we're just going to jump in the hole. We're going to, try to disengage onto that thing. We're going to let the tank grab whatever they can tank. Now, this Risen grabs 4 big packs of these guys, which I've never seen done before. I've only seen, 3 packs or these 2 packs being pulled together. But this is a very easy pack from what I can see, and they just get destroyed. They just get melted. And then we just go into the standard packs down here. So we're going to end up keeping an eye on that, on the Void Stone. And then we're going to AoE the rest of the group down, and they go down quick and easy. And then we're going to end up going after the Void Stone, and we're going to go into the little pack. And then we're going to go into the bigger pack when this is almost done. Once the Void Stone's done, the rest of it is just easy. So we try not to deal with that. I keep trying to misdirect throughout this whole entire time because I know it's going to be easier. So we end up doing that. We have a decent amount of time on the timer right now. We have 10 minutes or 11 minutes. So I really wasn't too worried so much about getting through these packs because these packs are generally easy. You just have to kind of keep an eye on where you're going. Now, once you hit that level 12, you can see the removal of Pulsar this week, and you can see that we're ending up, dealing with, the increased damage and the increased timer deficit when we had that death. So now we're going to end up taking this pack. I end up using my cooldowns. Like I said, I try to use my cooldowns as much as I can because I know it's going to do nothing but increase and help the group itself and shorten the time on the bosses. So we end up getting that down. We're going to end up DPSing a little more on the Ascended, do the MD. We're going to end up going after this guy here, the Void Stone again, and we're just repeating the process from before. This part down here, it gets a little monotonous and a little kind of annoying and kind of boring, but it's better, in my opinion, to deal with a 12 that is repetitive than having to deal with different mobs in every single pack, because it's just going to be more difficult to deal with. I should have used a defensive here, and in the future when we do hierarchies, I will be using a defensive here when we're going through. So we're going to end up killing this guy. We're going to end up killing the crushers, and then we're just going to AoE this group down here as we're going through. As we go through, we're going to end up going to multiple different sides. I was asked to go to the far side. I'm pretty sure that the melee was in the center, and then the melee was on the left side, and I think maybe the elemental shaman was in the middle with the healer. Being that I was arranged, and I kind of know that you have more than enough time to deal with certain abilities, and I'll get to that. That's why we kind of ended up doing that, so I can kind of move and DPS and deal what we have to deal with. So we're going to kill this Void Stone, and we're going to go pretty much right into the boss. So I get to my far side, he ends up pulling, and we just kind of start. I try to position myself right here because I know that the healers usually have a hard time dealing with people that are distance. We try to make sure that we're also dropping our what's it called? The drops or the dispels far away from the center of the group, because if you do that, it's just easier to deal with. So we're going to end up doing that. We're going to DPS here. And we're just going to continue to go. He's going to get stunned in a moment. And once he gets stunned, that's when you're supposed to use all your damaging abilities. Me, like an idiot, I didn't do that. But he ends up going crazy. We end up doing the massive amounts of DPS, and we try to get down whatever we can get down. Once that is done, I end up taking my circle over to the to the stone, and then we're going to continue. The Oblivion waves are pretty much self-healable from the tanks. So the tanks can pretty much go into the corner and just deal with it on their own, which is really nice. See, I use my what's it called, my Dwarven Racial to get that off. And right now the shield is down, so I'm going to try to pop down all my cooldowns and try to do as much damage as I can to help out the group. So here's the null uplifting. That's what you want to kind of get ready for, because you're going to get that pillar that you want to make sure you get. And we end up getting that group down, and we kind of try to get back into the center. And I'm, like I said, I'm trying to continue to keep myself close to the healer. It's just going to be easier for everyone in the long term. Here I have another dispel, so I try to get into like a safer spot. I then wait for the dispel to happen, and then I meant to go over to deal with the pillar, but I didn't have the time for that. So here's the next stun that's going to be coming in, and he's got stunned to 2%. So, and then we end up killing him not too long after that. So yeah, pretty good run. I was happy with our performance, and it was all good. I want to take a second to just say thank you very much for checking out the video. Please make sure you hit that like and subscribe button, and check out all of our videos. We're going to be putting out a lot of them very, very shortly and very soon. I want to say thank you to Risen Blade, a friend of mine from Onward, who ended up putting together the groups to help us get down these keys. I originally didn't want to do it in the beginning of the season, but now I'm kind of enjoying it, and I kind of want to keep going. So thank you again. We're on Twitch every single Monday through Friday. My name is PeteyTV. See you all soon. Thanks. Bye, everybody.